What is going on, gang? Welcome to the latest episode of The Game Plan. This is your fantasy football show made for each and every one of you fantasy managers out there. I don't care if this is your first year, 20th year, 6th year, doesn't matter. We got all the info, we got all the stats. We're bringing you what you need to know to get an edge on the rest of your league. Of course, I'm your boy, the authentic one, Mr. Matty Kiwoom, and I am joined by Evan Ringler, a.k.a. the Stats Wizard here at PlayerProfiler. Evan, say what's up to the people.
What up, people? It's glad to be back after taking a week off. I was a little sick last week, but man, I missed chopping it up with Matty in the audience. So yeah, glad to be back.
You know, it's good to have you back, my friend. Having to ramble for a whole hour by myself was no easy task. I do want to point out one thing. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm nothing. Just a fantasy football analyst. But it is a coincidence that, once the Mariners stop playing baseball, all of a sudden everyone gets a little healthier. You can make it at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, that's a pretty good conspiracy theory. You think you're on something there.
But it's not in the analytical profile, so we cannot quantify it. We cannot talk about it. We will not talk about it, but we are going to talk about a lot of things today, Evan. We got a great show lined up for the Player Profiler Faithful. But before we get into the first segment, make sure you're subscribed to the Player Profiler YouTube channel. Smash that like button on this very video and leave a comment. Give us some of your bold takes for the second half of football, because believe it or not, everybody, we are there. We are halfway through the regular season for fantasy football. 7 down, 7 to go. Week 14, last week of the regular season. So we're halfway there. So this week on this episode of the game plan, we are talking about the first half. We're going to put a pin on it. We're going to give away some studs, some duds, who performed, who outperformed, who stunk it up, all that good stuff. And we'll talk about some of our second half predictions. So without further ado, let's get into segment number 1. And, of course, people, if you got some lineup questions, if you got roster decisions, if you got trade advice that you just need from the two of us, drop it in the chat. After we get through to segment number 1 and 2, we are just going to dedicate some minutes to you, the fantasy managers, get those questions, get all those answers as fast and as thorough as possible. And if you want to jump the line and you just can't wait till the end, of course, Super Chats jump you to the tippity top. But as it says here in the overlay, Evan, but for our listeners, they don't see it, but we'll just talk about some studs and duds. We each have 3 studs in the first half, 3 duds from the first half. Let's get into the first one. Who is your number 1 stud from the first half of the season?
My first one is Dak Prescott, who's currently the quarterback 4 in points per game and ranks 2nd in pass attempts, pass yards, and pass touchdowns. In all the advanced metrics, he's top 10 in pretty much all of them. And I wanted to bring Dak up specifically because he's been a kingmaker this year. It's because of Dak that we're getting great seasons from Javonte Williams, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, hopefully, and Jake Ferguson. That's what makes Dak one of the fantasy studs of 2025. He's been a true kingmaker this year. This Cowboys offense is perfect for fantasy success, and Dak is just taking it to the next level by playing his best football.
We love the rushing quarterbacks for fantasy. We love, the guys that can get it done on the ground for our fantasy teams. But the truth of the matter is, the kingmakers, as you call them, typically come from the pocket passers. And we got to give flowers when flowers are due to a guy like Dak, because not only, like you mentioned, all the stats back up the production, all the surface stats are there, the fantasy points, everything's there. It feels like he can just carry everybody with him. CeeDee Lamb comes back last week, and it's the thought of, how is this going to get split up? Does this mean Jake Ferguson's donezo? Does George Pickens go back in the bag? Does Javonte take a back seat? And the answer was, at least 1 week in against the Washington Commanders, nothing changes. CeeDee Lamb just becomes a wide receiver 1. Pickens is still a high-end wide receiver 2. Ferguson's a weekly top 5 tight end in fantasy. And why not? Javonte Williams, you won't take a back seat either. You will also be uber relevant. This offense is humming. It's super fantasy friendly. And I just want to say one thing about this Dallas offense before we go into the next guy is you got to love, when they hired Brian Schottenheimer, I don't think a lot of us were all that excited on the surface. But man, he loves us fantasy gamers. I mean, just the quotes coming from Dallas camp. I mean, I don't talk about what did he say? What did he say? I don't worry about plays, or I don't worry about spots on the field. I care about superstars. I want to get my superstars the ball.
Beautiful.
He's letting
We
them
love
go out
that.
there and hoop, and we absolutely. I mean, we adore it. It's it's what we want all of the teams in the NFL to do. You know, why strive for championships and Super Bowls, everybody, when you can just worry about our fantasy teams? That's what we're really here for. We're here for the fantasy output. But Dak Prescott, absolute stud. I would probably say he is my fantasy MVP at this point. I know there are more better point scorers, but at this rate, he's keeping all these guys relevant, and he's also
Right.
been the late QB smash. All the team builds, that when you waited for a Dak has been an absolute smash mode. So Dak Prescott, definite stud, potential MVP of the first half. I'm going to talk about my stud's going to be very surface level. We're not going to talk about guys who outdid their ADP. Yeah, he's outperforming his ADPs because his ADP wasn't the 101. I'm talking about Jaxon, Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver one in fantasy football right now. 70 targets. That's 10 per game, 10 per game he's getting right now. 50 receptions, 819 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. But the thing about the JSN profile that just keeps you up at night, it just makes you so happy, are all the number ones. You go ahead, go to your computer, pull up your browser, click, type in PlayerProfiler.com, find Jaxon Smith's player page, go look at the performance profile, the analytical profile. What do you notice, Evan? A whole lot of number ones, twos, threes, and fours. The performance profile, the analytics, they all back the surface stats. I don't see a huge fade in terms of his points going forward. Second in fantasy points on a per-game basis. Second in expected fantasy points on a per-game basis. So, yeah, maybe it's inflated a tad, but it's going to be inflated when you're getting this type of volume and you're able to convert. And taking it off from the player profiler page, because I could just look at it all night.
I know. Seriously, man.
Yards per route run, number one. Formation adjusted yards per route run, number one. Yards per team pass attempt, number one. First downs per route one, number one. It just gives you the warm fuzzies. But what really takes it over the top for me is when you watch him play. I don't say this often because I think we tend to use hyperbole as kind of we use hyperbole so much it's not really hyperbole. Everything's just loud. I come from in my household. My wife and I got 3 daughters, Evan. So it's the volume's always high. It's not their fault. Everyone's trying to talk to each other. The volume gets up. So when you raise the volume, me shouting doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything. So this is I'm not talking hyperbole. I'm just here to say something though. I think I found the next Antonio Brown. And again, I don't say that often. There have been candidates, but I see a guy that not only has the Antonio Brown skill set, but now he's found his Ben Roethlisberger. Because Sam Darnold, it's just, I'm looking at him first. I'm looking at him fourth. I'm not going to throw it to anybody else until I know for an unequivocal fact that JSN's not open. He's getting the ball 19 yards downfield on 4th and 1s. He's getting the ball for touchdowns. His first catch on Monday night was a touchdown. Dunked it. Awesome move it. It's just JSN, he not only is he coming into his own as a receiver, but the offense is going to grow between him and Darnold. That connection is going to be the bloodline of this offense. Doesn't matter if Cooper Kupp starts getting more looks. Doesn't matter if A.J. Barner is fantasy relevant. Doesn't matter if Torrey Horton gets a larger role. Doesn't matter if they actually get the run game going. The volume's there. The conversion on the volume's there, and I don't see it going anywhere. JSN, my number one player, my number one stud here in that first half. He's just been fantastic.
I absolutely love it. There is no receiver in the league that I'd rather watch right now. He is just so aesthetically pleasing. He can do everything you want a receiver to do. He does the easy stuff. He does the hard stuff. He's got the yak. He can get deep, even though we thought he was a slot player his rookie year. He can win on the outside. He can win on the inside. There's really nothing he can't do. And I love the comp you made to Antonio Brown, another do-it-all receiver that just absolutely crushed for our fantasy teams. And the Ben Roethlisberger to Sam Darnold comp is beautiful as well. These big quarterbacks that stand under pressure and just rip the tight window throws to their best receivers. Absolutely love it.
All right, Evan, what's your next stud from the first half?
My second stud, it's pretty obvious. It's Jonathan Taylor. He's having one of the best running back seasons of the last decade. currently at 25.6 points per game. And that's actually the running back 2 behind a guy named, that might be coming up a little bit later. And he's also the running back 2 in expected points per game as well. All of the volume stats are awesome. He's second in opportunity share, fourth in weighted opportunities, first in red zone touches. But all the efficiency stats are amazing as well. Third in fantasy points per opportunity, sixth in true yards per carry, fourth in juke rate, sixth in yards created per touch. This is the perfect marriage of volume, talent, and offensive environment to create one of the most dominant running back seasons in recent memory.
Jonathan Taylor is he's so good. And sometimes you just got to call it like it is. And one thing I want to point out with Jonathan Taylor, we try to cater the show for the here and the now, the redraft crowd, the seasonal crowd. But of course, our sentiments, we're talking about Dynasty too. We play all formats. We're actually doing the damn thing as everyone knows. But so in the Dynasty sense, I do want to just say this about Jonathan Taylor. This isn't a sell high window. This is not a sell high window. His best comparable player on PlayerProfiler.com is Zeke Elliott. I don't think people realize how fantasy relevant he was into his career. He didn't average less than double digits until like his last season as a pro. Even on the Patriots, he ended up averaging 10 points, throughout the season. And I say all that to say that body type, that style translates. It can carry through years, and I don't believe that we'll see a slowing of Jonathan Taylor over the next 2 or 3 years. So, if people are trying to sell high because next year he'll be 27 years old, I would go against it. I think he has at least 2 more after this one of being a good player, at least an RB2. So I wouldn't necessarily sell high. I've seen that sentiment being kind of thrown out there that if you're not like the favorite to win the championship, tear down, to sell, to get some more assets. I don't know. I think we're going to be seeing JT at the top of our list for a couple more seasons. So I would go against that. But everything's great about Jonathan Taylor. I mean, last year in 14 games, he had 12 rushing yards. This year, 7 games, 11 rushing touchdowns. And I know you and I were on the same page. We fade touchdowns. But when you're this good and you get this volume, these are the players that break records. They don't, regress to the mean, right? This is a guy that it's just as likely that he just keeps this pace as it is to just completely evaporate and he goes back. Because, I mean, he's already had this would be already his 4th of 8 years in the league with double-digit touchdowns. So since 2020, that's what he does. He scores touchdowns. He has a 20-touchdown season under his belt. But it is interesting that all running backs are not built different. I mean, are all built the same. Even the studs. The studs are built differently. Because my second stud, again, we're not getting too deep here. I'm talking about Christian McCaffery.
Yes, sir.
Christian McCaffery has been otherworldly as a fantasy player in this season. He's been unreal. The receiving is astronomical. I saw a tweet from you a couple weeks ago where he kind of falls in line with the receiving numbers in this league. I went ahead and followed up on that this week and looked at it. He'd be the wide receiver 8 amongst qualified receivers. Wide receiver 8. And we're not talking about a single rushing stat. Not a rushing touchdown added to that number. Not a yard total. Nothing. As a wide receiver, 8th in fantasy points on a per-game basis is unbelievable. It's so unbelievable. And I talked about the difference of the two. Both great. Both, our league winners, championship anchors, all that good stuff. But I mentioned that they're not built the same because one thing stands out to me, and it's unbelievable how much it sticks out because it's kind of jarring. So you talked about fantasy points, expected fantasy points. If you don't really know how that relation works and how we use it, go back a couple episodes. We talked about stats that matter, our favorite stats, and we talked in depth about why we use fantasy points per game and expected and how that kind of works. So we mentioned Jonathan Taylor, number 2 in both of those. So he is number 2 in fantasy points per game with 25.6. Number 2 in expected fantasy points per game with 21.8. Now listen to Christian McCaffrey's numbers. 26.7 fantasy points per game, number 1. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, the inflation happens when you score touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor, that was about a 5-point swing in terms of points per game in expected. Christian McCaffrey's expected fantasy points per game, 28.2. He's expected to score more fantasy points than he has. There is still room for this analytical profile to support more fantasy points on a per-game basis. I don't think people understand what he's done this year. And even when everyone gets healthy, Kittle comes back, we're not going to give you a target. We're going to win this game with Christian. Ricky Pearsall can get back. Brandon Ayuk can get back. It's fine. He won't have 10 targets a game like he is. I mean, he's 65 targets on the year so far. He's got a 28% target share. I mean, these numbers, it's unbelievable. And they'll come down. Sense. But there is still room for this number. He could score 3 less fantasy points per game from here out and still be the number 1 running back in football. And I have this thought, Evan. I'm gonna ask you about this before we move on. Completely out of left field, completely not about what we're talking about. But I have this gut feeling, Evan, that in a year, 2, Christian McCaffrey plays 2 years as a slot receiver. He converts out of being a running back, and he just plays wide receiver. He's 29 years old. He's going to be 30 next year. And he's proven that he could just – why couldn't he be the Julian Edelman of an offense for his last 2 or 3 years?
He's doing it right now.
He's doing it right now out of the backfield, right? And they line him up, in the slot. They'll put him out wide. They do all these things for mismatches. And it just feels to me that – the sentiment right now in Dynasty is, get what you can, sell him for a first, all this stuff. I don't know if we can necessarily say without a shadow of a doubt he can't give us, 2 seasons at least after this one of fantasy, awesomeness. And again, don't have him rush the ball a single time. He's receiver 8. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Look, I understand some people want to sell off on these aging running backs. Please don't sell Christian McCaffrey or Jonathan Taylor this season unless you're just in a full rebuild. Otherwise, you're probably just flushing a championship down the toilet. And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do is win championships. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a hard time winning your dynasty championships without having one of these stud running backs on your team. So, if you're going to trade him, wait until the offseason, please.
Evan, let the people know, what is your third and final stud from the first half of the season?
My third stud is Puka Nacua, the wide receiver 1 in points per game right now, and the wide receiver 3 in expected points per game. He's also right behind JSN in a lot of these stats that we've mentioned. Target rate, yards per route, first downs per route. He is second in all of those, right behind JSN. He's also got a unique skill set where he's 12th in total air yards, despite missing a game, and 3rd in total yak. So he gets downfield and he wins after the catch. He's just an all-around stud that can do it all, kind of like JSN we were just talking about. And when you pair this with a kingmaker like Matthew Stafford, you get fantasy magic.
Yeah, that's bye week comes at the great time for Puka Nacua. Mm-hmm. And also, too, I think this is a rare moment in redraft season where you could pounce on a stud. It's so hard to acquire difference makers in fantasy football in redraft because the rules are just so straightforward. And the guys who are good, you don't want to let go, even if you're not good. And if you're not good, maybe you're not checking your team or caring. It's all this, difference to make you trade. But Puka's that guy that you could have traded for, and you have this window to trade for last week and this week because he's getting 0. And if the team that has him isn't a isn't a clear number 1 team, is maybe like fighting for a playoff spot, they might be, you might be able to take. It's going to take your wide receiver 1 and your running back 2, or your running back 1 and your wide receiver 2. It's going to take capital, but there are opportunities to acquire a Puka Nacua, and I'm going to do it because I'm not really afraid of the injury. It felt like if this was week 16, 17, 18 for the Rams, he would have played that game in London against the Jaguars. It seems like he was going to give it a shot, and then, of course, they stepped in and said, buddy, this is not the time to be doing this, right? So I like Puka Nacua. I think he's fantastic, and the numbers support it. JSN is not in a league of its own. It's him and Puka. Those are the numbers that are so much higher than the rest of the group. And, yeah, with Stafford leading the league in passing, of course, Puka Nacua is going to feast in. You just never, ever want to doubt McVay in terms of building an offense. My third and final dud, I'm going to be a homer here. Everyone knows I'm from New England, Patriots fan. But I'm going to say my fantasy stud someone that is out kicking my expectations, Drake May. I was under the assumption that Drake May in year 2, first year under Josh McDaniels, would have been more of Justin Herbert from 2024. Quarterback 13, 14, good weeks, never really have bad weeks, but be more of a game manager. No, the Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel have let Drake May become a superstar in year 2. And he has taken advantage of it. I mean, the analytical profile is pretty much, it supports what we're seeing on the field. Top 10 in adjusted yards per attempt, fantasy points per dropback, fantasy points per game, true passer rating, EPA, he's number 1. There's all these factors supporting the production. All these things are there. And you talked about being a kingmaker, a guy who elevates those around him. Drake May is doing it. He is not carrying a bunch of people in fantasy like Dak Prescott is, but he is making sure that the Patriots in this offense plays well with Ramondre as the starting running back, Stefon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Mac Hollins, Quinshon Booty, and Hunter Henry. I mean, these aren't high drafted weapons, and yet they're performing. A lot of them are outperforming their ADP at this first half of the season, and that could be thanks to Drake May. And then you look at the Patriots schedule. It is as bad as it gets. I mean, all the of the top 10 projected picks in the NFL draft as of right now, I believe they play 9, if not all 10.
Ooh.
So they have played or will play 10 of the bottom 10 teams or 9 of the bottom 10 teams. It's unbelievable. But Drake May has been fantastic. He's really been dominant this year in year 2. We're seeing that Josh Allen type ascension earlier, maybe a year earlier than I would have thought, which is great. It's awesome to see. It's good for fantasy football. It's good for my New England Patriots. I love to see it. So Drake May, he's just been an absolute stud, and the opportunity to buy a player like that is probably come and gone in fantasy football.
Yep. In Dynasty, he is untradeable. It's just pretty much impossible to move him, unless I guess you're getting Josh Allen back or maybe Lamar or Daniels, but probably not. He's got the EPA. He's got the success rate. He's running a ton. Currently 4th in scrambles per game, which is the most valuable play for fantasy quarterbacks. He's slinging it downfield. He's hitting the checkdowns. He's really just doing it all. And he's way ahead of schedule, too. So this is beautiful to see.
We got some duds that we're going to talk about from the first half, but we got our first super chat. Guys, I'm seeing the questions pile up. Make sure you stick around to the end of the show. We will answer every single one of them. But again, if you want to jump the line, use the super chat function. So we do have one from Dylan. This is a question perfectly catered for you, Evan, because you are the mastermind behind this. So the question is, for you guys listening, are the Player Profiler weekly ranks meant to be followed exactly, or are they the median projections? What are some factors do they take into account? So the floor is yours. I will shut my idiot mouth and let you talk.
So yes, they are median projections. So you can adjust them depending on if you're looking for floor or ceiling. That is totally fair. Let's say if you're going into a Monday night and you're chasing 30 points, then maybe you want to take a little bigger risk. Versus if you're up 30, you don't want to take that risk. So you don't need to follow them. They're not the Bible. They are median projections, but I do put a ton of work into these things. They all start from a team basis where we look at pace, drop back rate over expected, all of that kind of stuff. The projected game environment based on the Vegas lines. We look at the weather the day of and adjust projections based on that. All the inactives, players who are questionable, players who are game time decisions, all of this stuff goes into this, as well as the advanced analytics that you see on playerprofiler.com. This is where I'm spending the bulk of my time every week, is in the weekly rankings, trying to get these things dialed in for all of our subscribers.
Yeah, the rankings too. And if you become a member of the Player Profile Nation, you get the access to the weekly rankings, get the downloadable version. When you download them, I love to do this because then you can kind of mess around with them. The information on there, the opponent for position ranking, the metric there, the Vegas implied total, these all help make the decisions between how these fantasy points are projected to be scored. I think these are some of the best you can get out there. So, Dylan, I hope this helps. I hope this answers your question. And again, Evan puts a lot of work into them.
Thanks for the super chat.
Come out so good. And thank you for the super chat. Again, if you want to climb the list, if you want to climb the line, absolutely drop that super chat, and you will. We're going to talk some duds from the first half, and then we're going to give our 5 bold predictions. Evan's got 3, I got 2, so 5 bold predictions for the second half. You are not going to want to miss it.
Pour one out for an incredible best ball season. It was a breakout 2025 for Fast Draft, but now the NFL action has started. That means it's DFS season. That's right. You might think, oh, wow, DFS, I can't win DFS. Oh, but you can on Fast Draft. You just pick any 6 guys, and you put them in a handful of booster spots. There's no salary rubric you have to follow. You're not going up against thousands of killer bots in these tournaments. Oh, no. These are regular people grabbing their 6 favorite plays of the week, and that's all you have to do. And we post the ownership so that you can choose how much chalk you want. There is no drafting. It's called the Quick 6 Super Slam. The Quick 6 Super Slam is the signature DFS contest at Fast Draft. It is changing DFS. We are making DFS great again. So go to fastdraft.app and use your host promo code for a $50 deposit match, and let's go start drafting faster.
Evan Ringler, Matty Kiwoom, we're here on the game plan. Studs and duds from the first half. Went through our 3 studs, and now it's the 3 duds. The guys who have been complete boobs 1 half in. So, Evan, what is your first dud?
Brian Thomas Jr. This one hurts. He's currently the wide receiver 38 in points per game, even though he is the wide receiver 11 in expected points per game. This all just comes down to drops. BTJ has 9 drops this year, while no other player has more than 6. To me, it seems like he genuinely has the yips over the middle of the field, but he is reliably getting open, and his usage is very, very similar to last year's, to his rookie year. BTJ obviously been a massive disappointment this year after being drafted in the second round of fantasy drafts. However, I will say there is still a very clear path to him being the player we drafted him to be. All he has to do is catch the damn ball.
Catch. Do you have any concerns about Trevor Lawrence being the quarterback?
I mean, I do. I wish he was a better quarterback, but at the end of the day, he's getting enough catchable passes, and they're just going through his hands. Trevor Lawrence is missing him, don't get me wrong, but he can still succeed like we saw last year, even though, Mac Jones, a lot of that was with Mac Jones, but the passes are accurate enough. He's getting enough catchable targets, enough catchable air yards to be good for us in fantasy if he can just catch the damn ball.
He need a much needed bye week for BTJ and a much needed bye week for his fantasy managers, because now we get to see what our rosters look like without him, which might give us the confidence to go out there and just sell him for what you can at this point. In terms of redraft, I think in Dynasty it's tough to really sell a guy with his talent at a low mark. But yeah, he's been a dud in the first half, especially where you were drafting him. My first dud, he was on the thumbnail. This guy has been an absolute stinker, TreVeyon Henderson. Henderson, for me, gets kind of double tapped here. He gets dinged twice. First being just the stats, the production, the fantasy points. I mean, throughout the first half, 6.7 fantasy points per game. Running back 46 is just not what we expected. And even more so, the analytical profile, there is nothing in there that would suggest to me that we're just waiting for a breakout. I mean, you look at the true yards per carry, 3.5, 4.3 yards per touch, that's 39th. Juke rate in the tank. 7 evaded tackles, 56th. Not explosive. And, up here in New England, we're hearing more about TreVeyon in a football sense. And the football sense is Vrabel doesn't trust him in pass pro, which to me is dumbfounding, because when I scouted and did my prospect NFL analysis for TreVeyon, he got bonus points for pass pro. I saw a guy that was the best running back pass pro in the class, and he's struggling with it, which tells me he's struggling with it in practice. He's struggling with it in a game, which means it's not going to cause Vrabel to push him out on the field. Now, he is still in a stubbed Ramondre Stevenson toe away from being the de facto number one. But I'm nervous about TreVeyon. I am very nervous about his rookie season and it panning out to about anything, because Evan, there isn't anything to get excited about. There isn't anything that tells me he needs to be in there over Ramondre. Ramondre's fine. He's handling what he is. And then we think back, remember that game against Miami when Stevenson went off and the coaching staff admitted that catch was a play designed for TreVeyon?
Mm-hmm.
That can't be good, right? When what you bring to the table is your pass catching prowess, your ability to make plays, to then see your counterpart take your jab and succeed with it. It just gives you the ick.
Yeah.
TreVeyon Henderson has given me the fantasy ick, Evan.
I totally agree. I don't understand it. I don't understand it at all. I mean, he's currently, coming into the year, the two things he was supposed to be good at were pass pro / just third down overall, and then explosiveness. And we haven't seen either of those yet this year. So I don't really understand what happened to him. We're not seeing the explosiveness or the third down element. What's going on?
I don't know, but what just happened with me is I do this every 5 shows using the Apple mouse. If you just graze it, it throws you into the previous screen. So I do this to myself every so often using my mouse.
You got mad at TreVeyon Henderson. You just had to leave the stream.
It's just so funny. Imagine if that is what I say. You know what, Evan, you're on note this time. And in the super chat, in the chat here, someone is just dropped TreVeyon for Isaiah Davis. Would you drop TreVeyon Henderson for Isaiah Davis in redraft?
I get it, man. I get it. TreVeyon is just, he pisses you off if he's on your team. And Isaiah Davis is not going to piss you off. So we're in this for happiness, and I respect it.
Yeah, TreVeyon, it's just, you're not doing yourself any favors with the fantasy managers out there, which, again, in the grand scheme of things, who cares? But we care. We're the fantasy managers, so we're going to talk about it. Using a top 40 pick on this guy has been absolutely horrific. And he was the running back one on a lot of my anchor RB team builds. And I'm using the bunny ears because I don't have a number one running back because TreVeyon was not that for me. He was pretty bad. So TreVeyon stinks. BTJ stinks. Who else stinks, Evan?
Chase Brown stinks. Currently the running back 33 in points per game, 26 in expected points per game. All the efficiency stuff is really bad as well. He's 50th in yards per touch. And I guess the lesson here is that a 70% opportunity share in a Joe Flacco offense is a far cry from last year's. We were hoping to get what we saw at the end of last year, which was a 90% opportunity share in a Joe Burrow offense. Pretty big difference there. And while Chase Brown has kind of stayed afloat recently, he's been scoring around 10 points per game. Maybe you're thinking about putting him in your lineup during a flex or during a bye-apocalypse week. His ceiling is just super low. He hasn't scored over 14 points per game once this year, or 14 points in a game one time this year, despite ranking 8th in opportunity share. And now we see Samaje Perine actually siphoning carries from him, short down work from him as well. This is pretty worrying.
Yeah, last year it took the injury to Zach Moss from to truly take off because the volume was just all Chase Browns and Chase Browns alone. It doesn't seem like they're comfortable with that right now. And
he was getting insane volume over the first month.
They gave him that
just
chance.
Didn't matter.
Exactly right. And I guess that's the thing that is most concerning. That they had the confidence. He just didn't perform in a way that gave them any confidence going forward, which sucks. Yeah. P. Ryan being someone that takes some spots, and Joe Flacco being the quarterback looks great for the receivers. I mean, talk about someone who just might be the fantasy savior. Does that trickle down to Chase Brown? Do we see more 100-yard games, or is he just that kind of middling running back 2 option?
Yeah, I think even middling running back 2 option might be generous for him. I see him more as a middling running back 3 option going forward. He really needs to catch passes to get there because the run blocking is just horrific, and they don't run the ball enough. He's only been seeing around 10 carries per game for the last month. So yeah, there's just really no ceiling. He has to catch some passes just to hopefully score you 15 points at best. That's kind of what you're hoping for in a really good week.
Man, have things changed from a year ago. My next dud is kind of a confusing one because I'm going to read off some scores that he's put up this week. 29.5 QB2, 27.1 QB4, 25.9, QB7. How could that guy be a dud, Evan? How could this guy be a dud from the first half? Well, here's how. You miss week 3 with an injury. In week 2, you do 4 points. In week 6, you do 4.9 points. In week 7, you do 4 points. In week 8, you get benched for Tyrod Taylor. That is how Justin Fields has hit my dud list. Now, again, 3 weeks where he was a top 7 quarterback, over 25 fantasy points. But the other weeks were absolute crushers. You can't win in fantasy getting 4 points out of your quarterback, especially when you were just relying on that guy to get 25. And then you factor in he got benched for Tyrod Taylor. And it doesn't seem as if he's going to get back that role anytime soon. It seems like the Jets are on the path to the first overall pick and a new quarterback. This is the chance. This is how Aaron Glenn saves his job. He just says, I didn't have my guy. You have ownership already talking shit about Justin Fields, and that type of quarterback, I believe, was kind of the ballpark that he was referring to, Justin Fields. So it seems like his days in New York are done. Even an injury to Tyrod, do they go a different option? Do they just kind of just avoid him rest of season? That is absolutely in play. And then again, to have this guy as your quarterback means you might be 3-3, maybe 3-4, maybe 4-3.
I think 3-3 is a good bet.
You've probably, it depends on who you streamed in that week 3 when you didn't start him, but things are just not looking bleak. And a guy that, again, was probably the most expensive quarterback for our late QB draft strategies. But he was still not, you didn't have to overdraft him. He was going after pick 100, but he was probably like I would say the most expensive of him and Dak and all those guys that was kind of at the end of the draft. And now here you are having to find another quarterback. Justin Fields. Yeah. He stinks.
He does stink. Yeah. And he might start this week. If he does start this week, flip a coin. If it comes up heads, then he's going to put up 25 points this week. Lands on tails, he's going to put up 4 points this week.
The matchup is there for him this week, but how embarrassing would it be for Aaron Glenn and that team to name Tyrod Taylor the starter, only to have to put your tail between your legs and go back to Fields because Tyrod Taylor's hurt?
Yeah. I mean, it would be very Jets. So
it's so Jets, dude. It's so Jets.
Yeah. So my third dud here is Mark Andrews. Currently the tight end 22 in points per game, although he is the tight end 11 in expected points per game. He only has 3 red zone targets through 6 games, and the efficiency metrics aren't good. He's 24th in yards per out run so far. Mark Andrews has been reduced to becoming just another touchdown-reliant tight end going forward. We talked about this a few weeks ago. There's a huge group of 15 to 20 tight ends after the top 5 guys where it's just a coin flip every week. You don't know which ones are going to get in the end zone, and those are the ones that you want in your lineup. Because of that low passing volume in Baltimore, his mediocre route participation, he's always only on the field for 70 to 80% of those dropbacks, and his mediocre per route metrics, you really just need him to get in the end zone. You need him to have that crazy touchdown rate he had last year, but at the end of the day, it's really hard to bet on that.
And now you're starting to hear the rumors that Lamar might not play this week. And as the losses continue to pile up, at what point do they just say, maybe this is just a season where we don't play Lamar. Maybe this is a season where we're not all that mad if we get the 4th overall pick and we can add to this team at the top part of the NFL draft in each round. And then at that point, Evan, what does Mark Andrews come to if we're looking at a Cooper Rush for the rest of the season?
Oh, man. All of these Baltimore receivers are just cooked in fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not great for Mark Andrews, but I wouldn't necessarily give up on him in Dynasty because he's only 30. He could find another team and continue to play kind of like Zach Ertz did in that second half of that later part of his career.
Yeah, I suppose. I guess I would want him to stay in Baltimore and just hope he gets some more touchdowns the next year. But man, pour one out for our boy P Money here. That is rough. BTJ, Henderson, and Justin Fields. man.
A team
sorry.
I'm sure we all would have been so pumped about
Yeah.
going into the season. Even after week 1, you had, BTJ was saved by the touchdown. Hendo had like 6 catches, so you're like, that's 11 fantasy points. And then Fields went berserk. And now, OMG.
Pour one out,
So,
man.
Mark Andrews has been an absolute dud, but this next guy might be the biggest dud from the first half of the season. I don't know if you make duds bigger than Jerry Jeudy these first 7 games of the season. 257 receiving yards, no touchdowns, 6.8 fantasy points per game. Evan, if I told you that he was drafted with the 71st overall pick in redraft, but was now the wide receiver 70, what would you tell me? What would you say?
I mean, I would tell you that drafting him there was a really bad decision, and I could have told you that before the season.
And man, oh man, it just rarely do you see a guy whose ADP becomes their positional ranking after a half of season. It's unbelievable to have thought that you used a top 75 pick on Jerry Jeudy. When you look at the analytical profile, and I know you are the guy who makes these, you would see a player that is just a less explosive, worse version of Rashid Shaheed, Jameson Williams. All he is a go route guy, a wind sprinter extraordinaire. Number 1 in unrealized air yards, which means he's just getting chucked the ball deep. He's got 11 deep targets, the 7th most. He's got the 9th most air yards, 13th most air yard share amongst qualified wide receivers. They are just telling Jerry Jeudy, you go down there. Run. He is the kid in pickup football that you want to play because you don't want to make him feel bad, but he can't catch, so you just say, go straight. Just run. I almost had you there. Come back. We'll do it again. Run straight. And then the other guys get the ball. He's not explosive enough to be that guy. He's getting a lot of first read targets, which is encouraging, but that number's fading by the week. That number continues to drop. Those first reads are going away as Harold Fannin gets more and more of them, as Quinshon Judkins becomes the entire offense. So Jerry Jeudy is just a receiver that is not getting any type of valuable looks. He is, the epitome of shots from the logo, where you're just hoping they go in. You don't expect them to. They're shots from the logo, but you're going to keep hurling them out there. That right now is Jerry Jeudy, and that is why he has been an absolute dud in the first half.
Yeah, Jeudy was great last year in fantasy, despite being pretty mediocre on a per route basis. He was basically the same guy he's always been. I think he was around like 1.7 yards per route run, nothing special. But he ran just a shit ton of routes. And this year, he's also running a ton of routes. He's second in routes run among all receivers, but the efficiency has fallen off the cliff. His yards per route is below 1, which is like, that's the bare minimum, bro. It's really sad to be under 1 yards per route. And I don't know if it's all his fault. His catchable target rate is really rough, 90th among receivers. So maybe that Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel tandem has just been failing him. I think that's a fair point, but I don't expect that to get any better going forward. I think Gabriel's good for Fannin and maybe the running backs, but besides that, I don't have much interest.
Yeah, it's been rough. And all of these guys have been absolute duds in the first half of the season, but we're hoping things could be better. We're hoping the second half brings some fun, excitement, and fantasy points to your rosters. But we got 5 second half bold takes. So here's how we're going to do it. I would like to close it out because I have one that's just going to piss people off, and I want to save that for last. But I'll get us started with the first one because I have 2. You brought 3, so I'll hit the first. You can hit us with your 3. I'll close it out. How's that sound, Evan?
Sounds good. Yeah, we haven't ran these by each other, so it'll be interesting to see if we have any crossover here.
All right, so here we go. First one, we're going to start a little bit. It's not super spicy. Certainly not going to be as spicy as my next one. But the first one, Quinshon Judkins leads the NFL in rushing in the second half.
Ooh, nice.
Judkins has been fantastic as a runner of the football in the first half. We're seeing the numbers go up. I mean, 467 yards is pretty damn good in terms of the overall scope. It's 11th most, and he missed a game. He wasn't active week 1, wasn't necessarily the focal point in week 2, getting only 55% of the snaps in week 2, or I should say week 3 to get the 55. Yes, 27 actually week 2. Didn't play week 1, 27% of the snaps in week number 2. But since then, we've just seen him rip off a whole ton of yards. He's been great rushing the football. He looks great. Everything checks out. The profile, highlights how good of a runner he's been with his efficiency. He's been explosive enough, top 16 tonight. He's been good with breakaway runs. He's really taken advantage of it. And like I said, he's getting a ton of opportunities despite, again, missing week 1 and not really playing week 2. He's 7th most in carries. He has 109 carries. They're going to feed him the rock. The offense goes through Quinshon, Judkins, and that's why he's going to lead the NFL in rushing yards from now on.
I like it, man. It's a good bet because he's getting over 20 carries per game. And clearly the Browns really want to run the ball, and Judkins has looked really, really good when they've gotten him the football. So, yeah, I like this one.
All right, so now let's go to your 3. You got 3 bold takes, so let's start rattling them off. Let's talk them. Let's talk it through.
All right,
I'm excited.
number 1.
These bold takes are fun.
Number 1, Bhayshul Tuten will be a top 24 running back in November and December this year. Travis Etienne, he always sees a massive fall off in his yards per carry as the season progresses, and we've started to see that already. He was over 6 yards per carry in September and under 4 in October. So I'm going to expect that to continue, and Tuten's going to start taking more volume because he's actually been very good. He's currently 13th in juke rate, 8th in yards created per touch, 13th in fantasy points per opportunity, and by the way, one of the most athletic running backs of all time. So if Tuten can take that running back 1 role away from Etienne, which I believe he can do, then it's wheels up for Bhayshul.
So let's talk about something that our listeners can do. What would be your estimate at what it would take to acquire Tuten right now in redraft? What would it take for someone to go out and get him?
I'd say like a wide receiver 3 type, and not even like a fun one, because Tuten's just chilling on somebody's bench and they're not playing him. So maybe like I don't know, Khalil Shakir type during a bye week. Somebody just needs to fill in the lineup. Darnell Mooney, maybe Rashid Shaheed, somebody like that.
Romeo Dubes. I think this last few weeks, couple before, couple from now, these are the weeks I think you could really take advantage of making these type of trades because teams are dealing with injuries and buys, and no one likes to see their projection at like 70. No one wants to see on Sleeper that they got a 30% chance to win on Wednesday. No one likes to see that, and sometimes you can just play a little bit with the psychology of your league mates and just say, hey, I know you don't want to get beat up this week. I got Kayshon Boutte. You have Bhayshul Tuten. Let me get Tuten. I need a guy on my bench to back up running back.
Let me give you
take the starter.
Boutte for Tuten.
Sometimes you could just jump into a conversation and be like, what the hell are they talking about? Booties and Tuten on booties? Why are you guys Tuten on booties? But yeah, maybe you should Tuten on Boutte. Or Kendrick Bourne. These are the type of guys you could take advantage of, so I like that. So
yeah, I think great. Those are some great suggestions there for sure. Great time to trade for Tuten. My second bold prediction, Rashee Rice is going to be a top 3 fantasy receiver from now on. Rice is averaging over his last 14 healthy games, so this includes the end of his rookie year and the beginning of last year, plus last week. Rashee Rice is averaging 18.4 points per game and 9.1 targets per game across those 14 healthy games. In his first game back last week, Rice earned 8 first-read targets right out of the gate and had a target rate over 50%. With the Chiefs' offense being explosive for the first time since 2022, I think Rice can go completely nuclear over the second half.
That first game was such a preview, wasn't it? I mean, just zero. Just did not get any volume, but it converted to 2 touchdowns. And also, this is why you have to watch the games as well. 2 different ways schematically, 2 different scenarios. Right. It wasn't just the same play twice. It wasn't that they were just picking on the same guy the same way. It was different methods of attack, different schematic looks. And it just, as much as I've always wanted to hate on Rashee Rice, and I've been a Rashee Rice hater, I can't I can't lie to myself or and others and my loved ones anymore. This guy's a stud, and it seems like Pat Mahomes is coming out, for the MVP shit
Yes, he
this
is.
year.
Yes, he is.
And Rashee Rice seems to be the number one target in his eyes. Always has, maybe always will be. It's just unbelievable.
Yep. Randy didn't think that take was quite bold enough, so we'll see if my final bold prediction can check off that box for Randy. Stefon Diggs, over the course of the rest of the season, is going to be a top 12 fantasy receiver. So over the last 4 games, Steph Diggs has a target share and an air yard share north of 30%, and he's top 5 in both yards per route run and first downs per route run. In my opinion, he's one of the best man-beating wide receivers in the league. Fresh off that ACL, it don't matter. Second in yards per route run versus man coverage. When you combine that with the uber-talented Drake Maye that we were just talking about, I see a path to a giant ceiling for Steph Diggs.
Yeah, Steph Diggs has been everything for Drake Maye. He's been so good at helping. And at what point do we just look back throughout his career and realize, is he the most QB-friendly receiver, of all time? I mean, think about what he's done throughout his career. I mean, helping elevate guys like Case Keenum, right, and Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. Then, traded to be the guy to help Josh Allen get, evolve into that guy, and did. He helped. You could clearly see a correlation of before and after Stefon Diggs' arrival in Buffalo. Goes down to Houston, fits right in. He's not really the number one guy, but it was taking end arounds to the house and just helping the offense. And then he goes to New England, and at his nice ripe age, he still becomes that separator that helps Drake Maye get to that next level. He's just Steph Diggs is the man. Always loved Stefon Diggs. What's your kind of value on him in a redraft sense? Maybe even Dynasty too. Let's talk about both ways, because I think right now he seems like the obvious sell candidate in Dynasty, but the price is definitely it's costly right now. The market's pretty high on a guy like Diggs. So kind of what are you willing to give up? What do you kind of see his market being in redraft?
Yeah, well, if I'm saying he's going to be top 12 rest of season, then I should be willing to part with value that is close to that level. So I don't know. Could you give somebody like some guys that are outscoring him right now? DK Metcalf is outscoring him. I don't know. Nico Collins potentially. That's interesting. I love Nico, but that's interesting. Running backs, though, from a redraft perspective, maybe DeAndre Swift, Jordan Mason, kind of boring running back twos that are, good volume guys, but not necessarily a ton of upside. I don't think Diggs has like a super rosy outlook from most fantasy managers at the moment, because you really just had 2 big games and 2 mediocre games since then. I liked buying him in Dynasty right now, honestly, on my contenders. If you can slide Diggs right into your lineup, then go buy him. Those are the kind of deals I like to make.
In that scenario, Dynasty League contender, would you move Travis Hunter for Stefon Diggs?
Oh, I can't do it, Matty. I can't do it.
I can't either. So that is we've gone through 4 of our bold takes, and they've gotten hotter. I've loved every single one of them. I believe in pretty much all of them. Bold takes is kind of like it's not our 99th percentile belief, but it's probably like our 65th, 70th percentile belief. We don't, that's why you have a little fun with bold takes, get a little crazy. So I'm going to get real spicy here, Evan. Are you ready to have your socks blown off for my 5th and final bold take of the second half? In the second half of the fantasy football regular season, Travis Hunter scores more fantasy points than Emeka Egbuka.
Whoa! What?
Here's why. Emeka Egbuka, loved the player. Phenomenal first half. But he's banged up. They're pushing him through injury. The offense, I think he suffers from not having a running mate like Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. We saw the offense kind of flutter this past week. Couldn't really get going. In this last week, he saw 12 targets, but only caught 4 of them. And then you look at the analytical profile, and again, this is not a DEFCON 1. This is not giveaway Emeka Egbuka. This is a bold take. A very, very bold take. But the analytical profile does show the possibility for negative regression. We see a lot of deep
Yes.
targets going his way, a really, really, really high A-dot, a lot of air yards, a lot of unrealized air yards. But then we see, the yards per route run, 18th. Good. That's not bad. Again, this is not a knock on Puka. But then we see that his expected fantasy points are over 2 points less than his fantasy points per game. Again, not knocking the player. Love the player. But there is some indications, I'd say, in the profile that we could see some bust games. And then on the other side of that coin, I've always believed that Travis Hunter was the most talented wide receiver in this class. And I think that game in London finally made Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence realize as well that this guy is the best receiver on their team. Pound for pound, I think he is better than BTJ. I've always thought that when I scouted, BTJ at LSU, very highly regarded receiver. I had a higher grade on Travis Hunter coming out. So there is a world where Travis Hunter just is the best receiver. And I think they're also starting to realize how he can help the team the best. You put him on, opposing team's wide receiver in a situation where they need athleticism. We saw him, breaking up passes for Devontae Adams. But he shouldn't be out there all the time, trying to make tackles on run plays, trying to stop third and shorts. It doesn't matter. Like, they're starting to realize how to use him, and they're also giving him more and more touches on the offensive side. And last week, 14 targets, catching 8 of them for over 100 yards, scored that touchdown. We're starting to see the belief in Travis Hunter from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so I think this is just a sign of things to come for Travis Hunter. And I think this is the time in which they come out of the bye and he absolutely goes bananas. And then you look at the strength of schedule. The Jacksonville Jaguars have a top 10 schedule for the rest of the season for teams going against wide receivers. And Tampa Bay, second hardest remaining schedule for wide receivers. Again, I had to pick on somebody. I wanted to be bold. I'm going to be really bold.
It is bold. You completed the assignment. That is for damn sure.
So that's it. I'm going to put it on wax now. Fantasy receipts, get ready to play this as you laugh at me. It's fine. But that's what we're saying.
Hey, I respect the hell out of it, man.
Beckham Puka rest of the season.
Do I agree with it? Absolutely not, but I respect the hell out of it.
I mean, even I'm probably like 45th percentile on this take, but I wanted to get bold. And I do see a world in which the numbers paint a picture of this being a reality. Now, again, bold take. Emeka's been fantastic. I love Puka in Dynasty as a football player, all this stuff. So this is not a knock. But there was enough. Listen, you gave me enough room at the logo. I'm going to huck it up. I'm going to chuck it up, baby. You gave me the space. I'm going to chuck it. And yeah, so I'm just going to believe in Travis Hunter here.
Yeah,
so we got our
I
five
definitely love the pro Travis Hunter argument you make. That's for damn sure. I just don't want to bet against Emeka Egbuka. I think his targets just are about to go through the roof. And I don't want to bet against a guy like that, although you do bring up some compelling arguments. I hope that they can use him in a more consistent manner, get those first downs per route run up, which is really low right now for some reason. They're using him downfield a little bit too much, I think. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that gets ironed out, but don't want to bet against Emeka Egbuka personally.
Yeah, I don't feel good about it, but we swing for the fences. We take shots from the logo here on the game plan, and that's going to pretty much wrap up the show. We went through segment 1, segment 2. So if you don't want to listen to the chat's questions, feel free to tune off. But before you do, make sure you've subscribed to the Player Profiler channel. Make sure you like this video, leave a comment, do all that good stuff. And if you're listening, rate us, review us, leave a comment. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. But if you want to stick around, maybe some of these questions from the chat also help you in your decisions in fantasy football. So Evan, let's get into the chat. We got some built up. Very excited to get into it. So, who is your wide receiver? 1, 2, 3, tight end, and a flex spot. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and set this man's lineup?
Okay, let's do it. I'm looking at tight end first, Ertz or Kittle. Give me a Kittle all day. Receivers, we are starting Quentin Johnston for sure. We are starting Jordan Addison and Deebo Samuel. If Deebo Samuel's out, then give me Tez Johnson. And then the flex spot, I will go Krosky Merritt for sure.
So we're going to go Krosky Merritt and TreVeyon Henderson. No, I see the starting running backs there at the bottom, already locked and loaded. He's fucking good there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, at that point, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I think I agree with that. Addison's a lock here. I would maybe say Tez Johnson over Booty. I would say that as
I agree.
Is my guy if Debo plays. But if Debo does play, he is healthy for Monday night. Mariota's been good enough in the starting role for the Commanders, so I'd go Johnston, Samuel, Addison, lock up those 3 receivers. Be excited.
Agreed.
About it. Sucks about the Mariners, bro. We didn't really talk about that. I feel you. I was hoping to see the big dumper get a shot there at the last inning.
Yeah.
I have to ask, what was the overall vibe in the Ringler house when George Springer launched the ball over left field?
Absolutely brutal. Nobody spoke a word for a good 10 minutes. It's just heartbreaking. George Springer's broken our hearts a number of times.
Mm-hmm.
And him being a former Astro just makes it so much worse. But you
in
know
the
what?
Most hated era.
Yeah. You know what, Matty? This is the furthest that the Mariners have ever gone in the playoffs. It was a beautiful ride with a ton of memories. I was able to go to that 15-inning game. So at the end of the day, a lot to look back on in a good light.
How old are you, Evan?
25.
Oh, you're a young buck. Oh, you're a young buck. So I'm gonna walk you through something here because you were. What year were you born? 2002.
You can do the math.
2000. Either way, you were a
2000.
baby. Oh shit, 2025. You're right. This is why you're the wizard of the analytics, and I'm just the moron that asks you questions. Anyway, you were 4 years old in 2004 when the Sox won the World Series. I was, in high school, so I remember it very, very clearly. I want to give you some words of encouragement here because in 2003, Aaron Boone launched the knuckleball into the night and sent the Sox home in the ALCS, and it was devastating. I didn't even go to school the next day because I had talked so much shit to my friends and people who are Yankees fans. So just the thought of having to hear them rub in my face made me physically sick to the point where I didn't go to school. But then you know what? Just like you said, you start to realize how important it was to go this deep. You start to project going forward. You start to see the picture. You start to get excited again. And back then in 2004, they ended up winning the whole damn thing. So maybe next year's the year. This year is the heartbreak. Help you build
Very well
up. So
could be.
I like the optimism. He gets kind of dragged through the mud every so often, but I love Jerry DiPoto because if there's anybody in professional sports that plays like he's a fantasy manager, it's goddamn Jerry DiPoto. I love that he buys in the traditional sense. He sells in the traditional sense. He competes his ass off from the front office because that is a forgotten skill in today's game with all the analytics and all the value and all this sustainability. The dogs aren't so much in the front office anymore, and Jerry DiPoto's still got that dog in him, and I think he'll get hungry. And as dogs get hungry, they go out looking for some snacks. So I'm still high on the Mariners, and I think your day to celebrate that last game is still to come, my friend.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the kind words.
PPR, J.K. Dobbins or Keenan Allen. Got to make this decision before Thursday Night Football.
Ooh, that's a tough one. For whatever reason, this Chargers Vikings Thursday night game is really weird to figure out for fantasy purposes, but I'm kind of wanting to avoid it. What do you think about that? Because I'm leaning Dobbins here, but it's a really tough one.
The volume's been so crazy good for Keenan Allen, but the opportunities have been pretty juicy for JK. I'm going to go with JK Dobbins.
Oh, yeah. Dobbins has Dallas. He's playing Dallas.
He is Dallas, exactly.
Yeah,
so I'm going to go JK.
Yeah, fire him up.
Because even if Keenan performs on your bench, you're not going to feel as bad as if you start him and he sucks. Whereas JK's lined up, and, not for nothing, Vegas doesn't like this game. Vegas does not believe this is going to be a game that we should get excited for. And they don't really think that either team puts up a ton of points. I mean, even the Chargers, their Vegas implied totals like 23.75. It's, kind of middling to lower middling, especially for a team like the Chargers. So I think I'm going to go J.K. Dobbins there.
Definitely.
Would you rather stash Algier or Brashad Smith, my friend?
Personally, when I talk about stashes, I like to think about pure upside. And in my opinion, the guy with more pure upside is Tyler Algier. If Bijan was to go down, he immediately slides into a giant workhorse role in a run-first offense, a pretty good offense, at least when they're playing at home, versus Brashard Smith. I think there's a cap ceiling, even if Pacheco goes down and Kareem Hunt goes down and it all just aligns perfectly. I don't see them giving the majority of the rushing work to Brashard Smith because at the end of the day, he was a receiver in college. I don't think they trust him as a runner of the football just yet. They're giving him a lot of like designed targets and stuff like that, but I don't think he's quite there as a running back.
You know, a lot of people are very excited about his Week 7 score. You know, he put up decent fantasy points, but all that came in garbage time. I don't think he really had more than a handful of touches while Mahomes was on the field, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he really was a factor before the game was already put away. The starters were already out, they were already off the field. So I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into that. I'm with you. I'm going to go Algier over Brashard Smith because with the aspirations of with the Chiefs and how they've done things historically, injuries to Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco probably means that they go pick up a vet that's off the scrap heap. I mean, that's what they did with Kareem Hunt.
Right.
And he's still playing.
They have
for
Elijah
them.
Mitchell. They probably just slide him in.
That's a great call because he's very athletic. I don't even see that Jerick McKinnon output on the table for a guy like Brashard Smith. So, and that was frustrating to make decisions on week to week, even as it was. So I would go Algier because Algier, not for nothing, he does already have 3 touchdowns. There's been multiple weeks where if you were absolutely desperate, finish as wide receiver running back 16, running back 19 in a given week. He's had double-digit points 3 times, and that's with the best running back, maybe on the planet in Bijan Robinson on his roster. So if he were to go down, man, he's probably a weekly top 10, top 12 starter.
Yeah.
So that's the upside you're chasing when you're going with the stash. And I also believe that if you end up needing to swing a trade and you go to either the Pacheco manager or the Bijan manager, I think you have a better shot at unloading an Algier as a handcuff than you do Brashard Smith. So, just all those factors kind of have to weigh into it. So I'm going to go with Algier here too. Harvey and Henderson are killing me. Yeah, they were both guys I thought that would start to take over by now. They can't even hold the elite handcuffs because the 2 clowns taking up bench spots. Do you drop them? He could pick up guys like B-Rob or Corum. So let's just rank these 4, call them handcuffs at the moment. TreVeyon Henderson, RJ Harvey, Blake Corum, Brian Robinson. How do you rank those 1 through 4?
Man, this is impossible. How I currently have it ranked, I have it ranked as Harvey, Henderson, and then Brian Robinson, and then Blake Corum. It's weird. This is a really weird situation because I do understand that Corum and Brian Robinson probably have more pure upside if their starters were to go down, but they also have zero path to being startable without injuries. While Harvey and Henderson, don't get me wrong, it's been ugly, but there is still that opportunity. We haven't even hit the bye weeks yet for these guys. So when that post-bye rookie bump comes, there is a chance that these guys can at least be a flex play for you without an injury.
Yeah, I'm stashing the running backs. I think they hold more value in the league. I think they'll be picked up immediately. So I'm going to keep those 2. I do like Corum because of these 4, Corum seems like the best carbon copy of the starter. Whereas if Christian McCaffery goes down, and we are not putting that in the universe 1%, you hear that, fantasy gods? Not 1%. B-Rob, as the starting bell cow, doesn't look like Christian McCaffrey, doesn't get the volume that Christian McCaffrey does, doesn't get the passing down work, becomes probably your touchdown-dependent, top 24 running back, 25 running back. I don't think there's really a ceiling there. Corum, though, if something happened with Kyron Williams, I think Corum becomes a stud in that offense. But, yeah, I think the same could be said for Harvey and Henderson. So I would keep those 2. Jefferson, London, Wilson, BTJ, and he's in last place. Okay, so
rough.
That's rough. Yeah, you would expect
Really
better
rough.
team than that, P-Money.
And that's got to be in Dynasty, too. So that sucks.
Yeah, it does suck. Flacco or A-Rod this week? Jeez Louise. Which 4-year-old quarterback take your pick?
I'm going with Aaron Rodgers, revenge game in Green Bay. I think that should be fun. He's been playing his ass off the last few weeks. I thought he's looked really well or played really well. Very accurate. They're running kind of a goofy offense. He threw for 4 touchdowns last week, and they all went to 3 different tight ends.
Yeah.
Pretty weird. But at the end of the day, he's playing well. He's got a revenge game. Give me A-Rod.
I'm gonna go with Flacco here, so I know it doesn't really help you out, George. We're kind of splitting here, but I'm gonna go with Flacco. Love the weapons, love the matchup. Vegas thinks they're gonna score a ton of points against the Jets, so I'm gonna go with Flacco. But like you said, A-Rod's been good. He's been more than serviceable. So if you kind of want to, if you want to go with the if it's not broke, don't fix it type of approach for A-Rod, I won't fight you on it. Charbonnet or Woody Marks? I'm assuming rest of season because Charbonnet's on a bye, so this week obviously it's Woody Marks. So it's got to be rest of season. Who would we rather have?
Woody Marks. He has a path to being a running back 2 in your lineup without an injury. Zach Charbonnet, he doesn't have that path at all. I kind of see the Texans' backfield as being more of a 60-40 at this point, and if that could get to 70-30, then all of a sudden Woody is in your lineup every week. But the Seattle backfield is 50-50, and Charbonnet, kind of the only way he can get there in fantasy is just touchdowns. You just have to hope and pray that the Seahawks get to the goal line and they're actually able to punch it in on the ground. That's not how I want to play fantasy, so give me Woody Marks.
I'm going Woody Marks with a bullet because when you watch that game on Monday night, there was a clear difference. The offense was so much better when he was in the field. Nick Chubb.
He is explosive.
What are we doing?
Man.
What are we doing with Nick Chubb? I mean, last week had to be the final straw. It was so obvious when he was on the field.
Yeah.
You could expect a 3rd down and 8, 3rd and 12 if there's a penalty or a loss of yards. Like there was nothing to it. And Woody Marks, if you squint, Evan, you could see Joe Mixon. Like you could see the Joe Mixon shiftiness, ability to catch the ball, ability to make plays, to be quick, to be agile. And Woody Marks is here. We're not expecting Joe Mixon back anytime soon. I think Woody Marks could be a weekly top 20 play. And
yeah.
Charbonnet, you're looking at touchdowns. And even if Kenneth Walker gets hurt, I mean, the way that they're using the backs aren't all that enticing, even if it's just one of them. They're being used in more of the traditional sense. You're not seeing a lot of passing work go that way. I don't know if we see Charbonnet, even with an injury, become a weekly top 20 type of guy, where Woody Marks is top 20 now, but he's on a path to being a top 15 play every week.
Yep, easy one.
Would you trade Penix in a second, later 26 first for Patty? So Penix, 2 later, 26 first. Got it. Okay, so not a second. Penix and 2 first for Pat Mahomes. 3 and 4, sir. And he'd still have his own pick.
Give me Patrick. He's the QB1 in fantasy. It's Patrick Mahomes. There's really not a whole lot of risk you're taking here. And Penix he's been rough, man. He's been pretty rough the last few weeks. And I was high on him coming into the year, but not so much anymore. He's really disappointed. He plays all right at home, I guess, but on the road it's a complete disaster.
Yeah, and he's been concerning in the way that you go, is this fixable? He's got his weapons. He's got the offensive coordinator. What's missing? Like
in Dynasty, is Penix tradable in 2 years? Is he on your roster in 2 years, or is he cut? I don't know. So this is like 2 firsts and I don't know, a maybe quarterback that really doesn't have a ton of upside, in my opinion, for Patrick freaking Mahomes,
who still has at least 3-4 years of elite level in the tank. We've seen now quarterbacks. I mean, we just answered a question of Joe Flacco versus Aaron Rodgers. By that logic, you got 10 more years of Mahomes at a high level, so you're not worried about the future.
It's also 2 late picks in what we expect to be a bad draft.
Exactly. That's such a good point. That the only way this draft is exciting is in our Superflex league, and we get the 4 quarterbacks in round 1, because we're starting to see kind of a path to where a bunch of guys could go in round 1, but if it kind of becomes a smokescreen and we only get 1 or 2, all of a sudden the pick 13, pick 12, pick 11, pick 10, they become like, I mean, are you happy with Matthew Golden right now? He's
I mean, you're
some
not,
time
but oh man, Matthew Golden might be like the 6th pick in drafts next year.
Right, but my point is like this is in a good draft. The end of the first was Matthew Golden.
Right.
It was Caleb Johnson. How do you feel about your Caleb Johnson shares? You're excited if your league panicked on Quinshon and you got Quinshon, or you reached on Cam Scatabo, but again, it just feels like in theory the 2 first seem expensive. Keep trade cut. All those cockamamie calculators are going to probably say you're overpaying, but in practice, Patty Mahomes is a difference maker. And even if you don't make the playoffs, you go into next year with Pat Mahomes, you have your first. So if you have a loser's bracket or you do like the ping pong balls, you are still in your control of your own destiny with your own first in hand. So I'm going to go with, make the move, get Pat Mahomes and get excited. Get Rashee Rice with your first. Let's go crazy. Let's just do it. Let's be wild boys.
Let's do it.
MJH or MHJ, Marvin Harrison Jr. or Travis Hunter in Dynasty. Interesting question. I can't wait to hear what you have to say, my friend.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Marvin Harrison Jr. guy. I've talked negatively about him quite a bit, but in my opinion, it's still Marvin Harrison here. I think we need to see a little bit more from Travis Hunter. What do you think on this one?
I'm going to go Marvin Harrison slightly because, like you said, there's just too much uncertainty with a guy like Travis Hunter. And what if coming out of the bye, they don't see it the way I see it, and they go, "We're going to play mostly defense." Then you're just you don't have an asset. Period. If Liam Cohen came out of the bye and was like, Travis Hunter's going to play he's going to run all the routes that he can handle and just sparingly play cornerback. If he's tired, we're going to play him at receiver and not at cornerback. He is going to be a wide receiver in the NFL. Then give me Travis Hunter, because I think talent for talent, I've graded Travis Hunter higher. And we look back on some of these bold takes that, why am I drawing? But RC, who always goes on Mind to Mansion, RC Fisher goes on Mind to Mansion, lights it on fire. But he said Marvin Harrison wasn't in his top 5 of the class at wide receiver. And man, what a bold call at the time. But it looks as lock solid as you can think, because you'd rather have Neighbors, you'd rather have Rome, you would rather have BTJ. You would rather have Worthy. You would probably rather have Lad McConkey.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, he wasn't a top 5. So
yeah, and we've seen some real flashes from Marv this year. Like, you can see the upside. It's in there somewhere, but it hasn't come out all the way yet. It might, maybe if Kyler was to get benched, maybe that would help. We can talk about that another time, though.
Yeah, but as of right now, as things, in reality, in 2025 at October 22nd at 9:21 p.m., I would take Marvin Harrison slightly over Travis Hunter Dynasty. Woody Marks or Chuba in PPR?
Kind of the same thing as the Charbonnet one. He's Chuba is a 50-50 back in an offense that's just okay. So give me Woody Marks.
Yeah, I'm going to go Woody Marks too. I think what we saw in Week 7 was the exact bottom that we were looking for. The 55-45, it was damn close to, or even closer to 50-50 with him and Dowdle. Dowdle was more efficient. He might have got more of a volume thing. I don't think we're going to be able to predict it week in and week out. I don't believe that they truly have a huge allegiance to Chuba. The running back contracts are always a bit light in terms of, year-to-year predictions. So I'm going with Woody Marks. I think in Dynasty or redraft, I'm going Woody Marks.
Yes, sir. Easy.
What wide receiver on the Texans are you putting in for Nico if Nico misses time?
This is a really tough one. I was a huge Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel guy coming into the season. I'm going to go Jalen Noel. I would just prefer that slot receiver. They run almost exclusively 11 personnel, so he'll be on the field a ton. And he had some genuine explosive moments in that Monday night game against Seattle.
Oh, I think it's Noel. I don't think it's close. And you just can't bank on a big body downfield receiver to be the mainstay when you don't have even any time to block.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen Nico. Nico was on the borderline of duds when we were doing studs and duds. I mean, he's been good enough to stay off of the dud list, but where you were drafting him, he certainly hasn't been the player you were hoping. And I don't think that's going to bode well for a guy like Jaden Higgins. I think this is going to be, I think we're more likely to see 8 or 9 targets going Noel's way on a weekly basis than we see 5 or 6 going Higgins' way. And then in those 5 or 6, do they convert? So I'm going to go with Jalen Noel. I think pretty easily over Higgins right now. Slayton, Tez, or Mooney. Got to pick two. Yucko, but we'll pick him anyway. So you got Slayton, Tez, or Mooney.
Yeah, right now I have Slayton ranked as the highest among these guys. I don't know if I actually believe that though. I'm gonna have to reevaluate that. Also, we don't know if Slayton's gonna play. He hasn't been playing recently.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I kind of want to just say Tez and Mooney and adjust my rankings here. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Tez and Mooney. He doesn't need the volume, and the guy, players like this, they start with no volume, they make do with nothing, and then they get more volume and become better. I think that's, they're going to be desperately in need of a secondary pass catcher until Chris Godwin can get back on the field. So I'm going to go with Tez. I'm going to go with Mooney. We saw some downfield attacks, in his first game back. And Slayton, I don't know.
We just haven't seen it yet. Yeah,
we haven't seen it. The Eagles are
just
the Eagles are going to present a tough test. Getting beat by this Giants team a couple weeks ago is going to keep that defense hungry. I think it could be a bad day for the offense overall for the Giants. So I don't want that slate. Vegas has their implied total at, under 20 points. I think it's 18 for the Giants. So I don't want to.
Yikes! Jeez.
I don't want to 18-5. I don't want to.
They just
I don't
put
want
up
to chase that.
What the hell is that? They just put up 33 on them 2 weeks ago.
I know, and they put 30 points up in Denver last week, so I don't know what that Vegas is.
Yeah, let me bet the over there.
Yeah, no kidding. But I'm just in my principles. I'm not chasing a implied total for.
No, you're right. Yeah,
tertiary weapon. So give me Mooney, give me Tez. Gadsden or Otten? I'm going Gadsden on Thursday night.
Oh, I think this is Otten pretty easily. Honestly, we just don't. I don't know how much of a target share Gadsden's really going to see when Otten's going to be on the field the whole time, and he might be the second target for Baker Mayfield. Let's see, 25 implied points, or 25.75 for Tampa, and Chargers are at 23.75, so still pretty solid. But give me the guy who might be the second target on the offense versus Gadsden, who I think is probably like the fourth target, even though I love him.
I'm switching it up. I'm going to go Otten too. I was just kind of looking a little bit more into that Vikings. Vikings are a tough matchup. They're a negative matchup for tight ends. So I'm just going to go with that. And we were talking about the earlier with Keenan. You don't want to see that zero in your lineup. So I'm going to switch my two. I'm going to go with Otten, back you up there. I just got Justin Jefferson, and I'm going to trade him for depth. I'm going to trade him. The guy I'm going to trade with has Addison, Bucky Irving, Rashad White, and Sutton. I want Sutton plus Bucky. He declined what to counter. He also adds maybe try and get White and Bucky handcuffed with Sutton or Addison. Can I throw in a guy like Merritt, Kenneth Walker, Pacheco? And we'll just start with this. Should PJ be selling Justin Jefferson?
I think it's a fine idea. I think that Jefferson has a great floor, like an incredible floor, just because he's Justin freaking Jefferson. But the touchdown upside, I don't think is necessarily there, especially when JJ McCarthy comes back. I don't fully believe in that offense. I think selling Jefferson makes sense depending on your roster. We don't have his exact roster here. If you're going to do it, would you do it straight up for Bucky Irving? I don't think I would, because Bucky's going to be out this week. Then he's got the bye. And you're hoping he's back for week 10. So you definitely need a plus on there. If he's not willing to add Sutton, then could we do Bucky plus Sutton for Jefferson plus Pacheco? I think I'd be willing to do that.
Yeah, I think the tiering down approach makes sense. So for me, Sutton or Addison has to be in the deal for me.
Yeah,
I'm not betting on Bucky. He's hurt, and the way he's hurt makes me nervous because they're they're ruling him out for Sunday, like on Mondays.
Yeah,
back-to-back weeks. It's like they're just like, nope,
weird.
He's not playing. Don't worry about it. So I just don't know what he's gonna come back to. So I don't want to make Bucky the mainstay. Matter of fact, I think if you could get Addison and Sutton, or Bucky doesn't have to be in this deal for me. If I'm being quite honest. But I like the tier down approach. I think that's smart. I do think the Jefferson floor is a little bit lower than it's being perceived based on the quarterback play and how that offense has kind of looked in 2025. But I don't think I'm willing to get lower here. And the fact that he turned down Sutton and Bucky kind of suggests to me that you're probably not going to get a deal done.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking as well. We don't have the full context of his roster, his format, and stuff like that. But you don't have to trade Justin Jefferson, and you don't have to trade him to this one manager too.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I think that the tear down approach makes some sense here, PJ. But do yourself a service and make sure you thoroughly shop him around the league. Make sure you take some time with this baby and make sure you get the most out of it.
Nico Harrison.
We met on a Monday. We talked about it for months behind the scenes, and I said yes, even though that was a conspiracy theory, because the NBA rigged that trade, told Dallas that if you send him to LA, help the ratings, help the Lakers, we will gift you Cooper Flag. Also, that brings me to this next question, Evan. Would you rather have Luka Doncic or Cooper Flag and Anthony Davis?
Ooh, give me Luka. At the end of
Luka's
the day,
nasty, yeah.
It's just give me the best player. That's usually what matters in the NBA, especially the on-ball creator. So give me Luka Doncic.
There's your hoops talk for this week. Ezekiel's got a question. He's 2-5, and he's been losing from 2 to 8 points, so under 10 points since he's lost guys like Neighbors, Bucky Irving.
Ouch.
Should he trade Gibbs for Barkley, Judkins, Olave, 1 for 3? I have only Pollard starting with these guys in the backup. So you would get Barkley, Judkins, and Olave for Gibbs? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah, it sounds like he really needs the depth too. Like,
yes,
this is a no-brainer.
And I think even just in a vacuum, I think if I was a contender, I would think about this. I mean, Gibbs is awesome, but so is Judkins, and Olave's volume's been ridiculous, and all Barkley needs is a couple games to just get things going. Yeah, I'm making this trade, and it helps you this week with Gibbs on bye, with Bucky on Irving on bye next week. You're not getting him back. I like this. I think I'd be willing to do the 3-for-1. Sounds crazy, but I'm willing to do it.
Yeah. Yep. No notes, honestly. I think this is a pretty easy one. Saquon has been disappointing, but at the end of the day, he's still getting the opportunity share. You just need that Eagles run blocking to gel a little bit, and then this trade just looks like a complete smash.
All right, last question. Second opinion, 3 and 4. He just traded Bijan in London for A-Chain, Jalen Warren, Ladd McConkey, and Wandale. How would you be feeling flipping Bijan in London for that package?
Interesting. A-Chan isn't quite in that Bijan tier, but he's just in that next tier. He's still a clear running back 1 going forward. And Jalen Warren is a strong running back 2 as well. Aaron Rodgers has been throwing his running backs just a ton this year, and Jalen Warren is getting like a 70% opportunity share when healthy. So I like that. Bijan for A-Chan and Warren, that makes sense to me. London for Ladd and Wandale, I'm a little iffy on that part, but I think the A-Chan and Warren makes up for it. So I'm on board with this overall.
Yeah, I think this is a trade that you make it feels light. I think this is when all your boys say you got fleeced on. But I think in practice, I don't think it's all that bad. I think right now you got 4 guys that will be in your starting lineup for 2. Yeah. And if you're 3 and 4, you probably need it. And, I don't know if this is redraft or dynasty, but in redraft, this is a trade I think is really smart to do. At 3 and 4, you're trying to save your season.
It definitely depends on your team and all that kind of stuff. But assuming that all 4 of these guys are entering your lineup immediately and they're replacing some guys you weren't feeling great about starting, then yeah, this is a good deal to make.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to hurt to see Bijan on a different team. But
by the way, probably a good deal for the other guy to make as well. I think this is a good trade, probably a win-win.
Yeah, and I just want to just add on to that. You can't be greedy in redraft. You won't make a damn deal.
Yeah.
You won't. You got to make trades that both teams can feel good about because there's just not that leverage of future. Future prospect. That's where we find value in our dynasty trades, where we can now flip like what is literally a nothing, which is a first-round pick. You get no value from that until next year for a guy who could just put 25 points in your starting lineup on a weekly basis. Like, this is the type of things you could do in dynasty. You can't do that in redraft. You have to make a trade for a trade. It has to make sense for all parties and all things involved. And this feels like a win-win trade for both at 3 and 4. Yeah, and I also just, even if you make the playoffs, you right the ship and get there. You have A-Chan going against Bijan in the championship. I don't think you're really all that pissed.
Fine.
We're probably talking about running back 1-2 versus running back 4-5 on that week. You're still got some loaded talent. So I I'm assuming that Christian put this in the chat because the boys are roasting him in the group chat on Sleeper Chat. So he just wants a second opinion. I think you did fine, buddy. I think that's
you're doing all
pretty
right,
good trade.
man. It's all good.
That's going to wrap it up. Again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We love answering all your questions, making sure that those fantasy managers are ready to rock and roll. So that's it. That's going to wrap up the episode of The Game Plan. So, guys, whether you're chasing your first win this year or you know you're going to win the championship and you're just trying to win, trying to bolster up and get those final touches, we're here to help you out. We're here for you, the fantasy manager. I'm Matty Kiwoom. He's Evan Ringler. Evan, before we get out of here, let the people know where can they find you.
At Evan Ringler FF on X. And then you can find me on this YouTube channel Wednesdays and Fridays and PlayerProfiler.com. That's all you need to know.
PlayerProfiler.com. Yeah, there, yeah. You get him back. Send him this clip, though, Christian. Clip this, send it to him, let him know what's up. You're doing fine. It's a good trade. Yes, get Maye. Give me Maye over Baker. Would you trade Baker for Maye? Yes, get Maye.
Not close.
Knuckles, get me. All right, you can find me on X. I'm at Matty Kiwoom. Again, playerprofile.com is where you need to be. Make sure you're on Fast Draft. If you love, getting those that weekly fix of fantasy football, but you don't want the long-term commitment, go to Fast Draft, and play a number of the games there because it's fast, it's quick, but yet there's a lot of prizes to be won, a lot of fun to be had. So head over to Fast Draft, and then as always, we'll see you guys next week. So make sure you guys keep game planning, get those Week 8 dubs, and report back for Week 9. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.